Welcome back to Oasis Bible Church. I'm Chris. This is part 2 of a 4-part series, which we call Truth in the Age of Deception. The last episode, the first episode, we looked at deception and Satan's tactics and how he deceives the people. Today we're going to look at truth and what society uses as a fixed point of reference for truth. It's interesting that in a recent survey, 6% of youth said that there is an absolute truth. Only 6%. That's mind-blowing. That means 94% of youth today do not believe that there is an absolute truth. That's pretty scary. Let me talk a little bit about truth so we're on the same page. You can understand what I'm talking about when I'm talking about truth. Truth is discovered. It's revealed. It's never created, okay? You don't create truth. A lot of people think they come up with their own truth and that's great and your truth is your truth, mine's. No. Truth is the truth to all people at all times. Our perception of that truth may vary from person to person. But the truth is the truth to all people at all times. If you don't believe in gravity, and I do, and we both go up to the top of a building and step off, well, the truth is both of us are going to plummet, right? Even though you don't believe in gravity. You're going to plummet because the truth is gravity exists, okay? So the truth is the same to all people at all times. It's just our perception of truth may vary. Truth doesn't depend on how passionately you believe in it, okay? That's not what determines truth, is your passion. A lot of people are very passionate and they very fervently believe in some very bizarre things which aren't true. All the false religions can attest to that around the world. A lot of people think of some very strange things. They have very strange beliefs. But just because they're passionate about it doesn't mean it's true. Okay? And Norm Geisler had some interesting insights in a book of his. He said there are certain universal truths that are unbreakable, unbendable. They're the same throughout the universe. They're the same to each one of us, right? No matter who we are. And those cover sciences, math, the arts, music, even logic, right? So, for instance, art. 2 plus 2 is always 4 to everybody at all times, everywhere. It's not 5 to you, 4 to me, 7 to him, okay? It's consistent. If it wasn't, there'd be chaos, right? Computers wouldn't work, etc. And art. If you mix red and yellow, no matter who does it, it always comes out with yellow. It doesn't come out with blue, okay? It's consistent. Middle C, correctly tuned, is middle C to everybody anywhere. If it wasn't, there'd be chaos in music, right? And it even applies to the laws of logic. There's a thing called law of contradiction, which says that if true statements directly contradict each other, they can't both simultaneously be true. Classic example is there's a woman there with a doctor on each side of her. One doctor says you're pregnant, one says you're not. Both doctors cannot be speaking the truth simultaneously at the same time because they directly contradict each other. Either she's pregnant or she's not. Okay, so that's a little background about truth and how it applies to everyone, how it's defined. It's interesting that Jesus, if you remember when he talked to Pontius Pilate, he said to him, to Pontius Pilate, why he came. Most people, if you ask, why did Jesus come? They say all kinds of things. He came to save the world, to heal the sick, and all that stuff, and he did that. But that's not what Jesus said. In the Bible, if you look it up, when Pontius Pilate was talking to him, Jesus says he came to testify to the truth, okay? The truth of God and who he was. It's a universal truth. In Judges 2:25 it says, in those days there was no king of Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And today, same situation. Most people do what's right in their own eyes. They let their feelings and stuff override everything else, right? So they use themselves as a fixed point of reference for truth instead of God. Kind of like Satan fooled Eve in the Garden of Eden, right? You can decide what's right and wrong. Colossians 2:8 warns us about this. It says, "Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men and according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ." So they warned us about this. Okay? But let's look what happens when the fixed point of reference for morality and truth is not God, but rather man. Okay? First, let's look at God as a fixed point of reference for the truth. In Acts 17:24, Paul lays out 4 cornerstones of the Christian faith, and this is very interesting. Follow me on this, and I think you'll be surprised how logical it is. 1, God created everything. 2, God is the authority over everything, right? 3, God is self-reliant and dependent. He doesn't need or depend on anything else or anyone else. He's self-defining, in other words. And 4, God created man for a specific purpose. This is called the teleological view, which is basically, it's threefold. Our purpose as men, He created us with 3 purposes. 1, to have a relationship with Him. 2, to have stewardship over the earth. And 3, to reflect God to others, right? So that's our purpose. He created us for that, to have a personal relationship with Him. And that we only find true faith, true peace and happiness through a relationship with Him and not of the things of this world. That's how He wired us, right? And all of this is to glorify God. But if you look at man as a fixed point of reference, here's what you find. 1, there's no higher authority. 2, truth and moral standards are determined by the individual, right? And there's no fixed point of reference, right, outside of men for those things. 3, there's no specific purpose for your life. That's called the instrumental view, which says nothing inherently defines who you are. I am, or what I use myself to accomplish is the mindset there. I determine life's meanings and goals. So those are the 2 viewpoints, right? And the key concept, as I said, is that God wired you for the former, not the latter. He wired you for a relationship with Him, to find peace and happiness and joy, true happiness and joy through that relationship. But when you don't seek God out, you seek things of the world, you never really find the true peace and happiness, right? So, true Christians, think about this. You have 2 different views. Let's say everybody followed God's way of doing it, okay, the theological view. Here's what you would have. True Christians all follow the same God who has an ultimate authority over them, who never changes, who sets the moral and truth standards that everyone follows, and everyone finds peace and harmony in having a relationship with Him. Everyone's on the same page, agrees on the same moral standards dictated by God, right? Now, what happens if everybody in society looks to themselves as a fixed point of reference for those things? Here's what happens. Everyone makes up their own moral standards, having their own lusts, desires, and goals. They never find true happiness or satisfaction, so they always want more of something they don't have. And because they set their own standards for morality, they justify doing whatever they feel is necessary in their minds to achieve their wants and desires. So if 2 people want opposite things and no one has the ultimate authority, who wins is the big question. Who decides which one of us is right? This leads to chaos in society. A dictator, let's look at some examples. A dictator finds satisfaction in power, so he justifies the slaughter of thousands, okay? A woman feels her need triumphs everything, so she justifies aborting a baby. A pedophile feels that their desires are more important than the 8-year-olds that they just raped and killed. A Wall Street wolf swindles people out of money because their lust and for wealth and power takes priority over the other people, right? They justify in their own mind. They're a good person. They deserve it, right? If you don't believe in God as a fixed point of reference, then you shouldn't have a problem, by the way, with any of those things I just said. The Wall Street swindler, the pedophile, the dictator, or the woman. Because after all, who's to say they're wrong? If you don't believe in God as a fixed point of reference, then who are you to tell anybody else what they're doing is incorrect? Even murder and theft and swindling and all that, right? So if you think about it this way, if you have 2 football teams, let me ask you something. If you have 2 football teams, which team is going to be more successful? Right? You have one team with one head coach that lays down the law. Everybody follows that law. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. They run the routes they're supposed to run. And they all have the same definition of success. Winning the game, right? Getting the ball over the goal line, right? You have that compared to a football team where there is no head coach. All the players decide for themselves what routes they're going to run for each play. They all define success for the game differently. Some with a high score, some, personal statistics, whatever. Which team is going to be more successful? Well, obviously it's the one that's organized and all have a central fixed point of reference for the truth, so to speak. The head coach is the same for all. So the ultimate question, if you don't believe in God, the ultimate question is, says who? If you have no authority outside men to determine that you can refer to, you have chaos because everybody is going to do what's right in their own eyes. And when you point out to them that you think it's wrong, they're going to say, well, so what? Says who? Who made you boss? You see where that leads to chaos in the world. So we're going to look at, in the next episode, we're going to look at examples of how this secular mindset, non-belief in God, in other words, the mindset that everybody uses themselves as a fixed point of reference for truth, how that's led to chaos in society. So we'll look at that next, part 3 of the series. Thanks.